Well, hello there, Space Monkeys. Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm Robert Durden, and in this episode, we're going to start off with some jokes, but they're really not so much jokes as observations that I am coming up with about the boutique left. They are doing something really funny right now. Nomiki Konst has decided to run for state senate in New York, which you'd think that the boutique left would be 100% behind this, and some of them are, some of them aren't. But it's funny to me because there's actually a DSA-backed candidate in the district that she's running for who is to the left of her. So she's running a corporate spoiler campaign in a district with a DSA-backed candidate, and Joe Crowley, who AOC just defeated, is also running. So Nomiki Konst very well may actually get Joe Crowley elected in New York State Senate. So this is hilarious to me. I'm going to tell you who's on whose side, and we're going to make some jokes at Nomiki's expense. And then at the end of this, we're going to also do a real story about somebody that I'm fairly certain if I saw Nomiki and this person walking side by side on the street, I wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Nina Jankowicz, and she was previously the Truth Minister who just resigned, and her replacement. And I recently joked on my show that maybe like Jen Psaki or Sarah Huckabee Sanders, one of these really good liars like Rachel Maddow maybe, would get the nod for the new Truth Minister. And I was joking. And as it turns out, the person that they picked to replace Nina Jankowicz is far worse than anybody I was joking satirically about possibly getting that job. Just goes to show you, I can't even be as satirical as America is in real life when I'm trying my best. So we'll get to that second. We'll read a quick article from Lev Golinkin, who's done great work talking about Nina Jankowicz and her past and why she's unfit for such a job, and certainly why such a Truth Ministry shouldn't even exist in the first place. So we'll get to that second. Spoiler alert, it's a supervillain. It's a supervillain. So let's talk real quickly about Nomiki Konst. She came out on the Majority Report the other day. Now, she's been a host of Majority Report and been kind of like a, not even quite so far as Bernie Sanders lefty. And she's decided that she came out on Sam Seder's show and announced her candidacy for the State Senate District 59 of New York. Now, you'd think the boutique lefties would be all on board for this, but they're split kind of down the middle because there's actually a DSA-backed candidate, Kristen Gonzalez, who is more to the left by a long shot than Nomiki, and she already has like the infrastructure and the ground game working so she can actually pull this off. When we all know that Nomiki's doing this the same way that Cenk Uygur was running for Congress. It's like, yeah, you're running, but you're going to get clobbered. Best you can get is a couple of %, and we all know you're not going to win, so why the hell are you doing it? It's a vanity project or a money-making scheme of some sort. They do that sometimes. Ask Crystal Ball. So anyway, this is interesting that she's doing that because she's running spoiler against a candidate who's already backed by the DSA and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And guess who's also running? Joe Crowley. Joe Crowley is who AOC actually defeated when she actually won her first campaign. And remember, he was like number 3 or number 4 in the Democratic Party, like one of the heir apparents for, possibly speakership one day. He's one of the titans within the Democratic Party, and he was taken down by AOC. And now he gets to run again, and Nomiki Konst, who is to the left of Kirsten Gonzalez and does not need to run, might actually be running spoiler to get Joe Crowley reelected. So this makes me laugh, and it also puts a lot of these people in kind of a conundrum. Like, for instance, all of the people on the Majority Report the day after Nomiki came on and said that she was running for state senate, they all came out and they're like, no, we endorse the other person. I just want to be clear. We are not, we like Nomiki, kinda, but we really don't want her to win, and we think that this is kind of a ridiculous thing. Like, even Emma Vigeland was asked by either a super chat or a caller. It's like, don't you think that this is her kind of running spoiler on a vanity project that could possibly get Joe Crowley reelected? And Emma's like, yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So that was kind of funny. And then also this puts David Dole in a very, very weird conundrum because he came out and endorsed Nomiki Konst almost immediately on Twitter. And then the woman that he loves, AOC, came out and endorsed the opponent of Nomiki Konst, which, as you guys know, now David Dole has to choose between his friend and the woman that he loves, which is a tough spot to be in. Poor David. Is he going to be angry with AOC that she's not backing up Nomiki Konst? I don't know. I don't really know how he's going to handle this. So I thought that was kind of funny as well. And I want to be clear. I'd much rather have Kristen Gonzalez run than Nomiki Konst. She is barely even considered like left. Barely. I mean, barely. And if you hear her talk, you can tell that she's just kind of a spoiled little like rich girl who figured a way to like make some money off of pretending to be a leftist or a progressive. And now she's so dumb as to, and so ideologically bunk, that she's actually going to possibly run spoiler and help a progressive that she purports to support get defeated along with herself. So that's interesting. The boutique left just kind of tripping over themselves, getting in their own way as usual. So I thought that was kind of funny. And if Joe Crowley gets reelected, remember, the boutique left absolutely helped it happen. And they have no leg to stand on when they ever say again that Jill Stein was running spoiler, and that's why Hillary Clinton didn't get elected. Jill Stein, most Jill Stein voters, 90% of Jill Stein voters would not have voted for Hillary Clinton, according to an exit poll. That's a bogus talking point. But you know who might actually get Joe Crowley reelected? Nomiki Konst, giving Kristen Gonzalez effectively the Jill Stein treatment that you guys say that Jill Stein gave Hillary Clinton. So we'll just have to see if she sticks to it. This ought to be fun. And of course, I would like to point out, I don't want Joe Crowley to win. I wish Nomiki Konst would not run for office. She's not fit to do so. And she's actually going to prove a point that we've all made a million times on the true left, is that the boutique left don't have any plans. They're just kind of like, well, let's just wing it and we'll see what happens. See if we can just get more Democrats in there. And if Nomiki, my friend, that's been on my show a couple times, wants to run and defeat a DSA-backed candidate, then, whatever, I support her. Whatever. There's no strategy. There's no strategy with these people. They're an ill-educated bourgeoisie social circle that is trying to get access journalism done with the squad, and they don't think anything through. That's their job. So anyway, this is hilarious to me that Nomiki Konst is running. It's not going to go well for her. I suspect her percentages will be worse than Cenk Uygur. She might even drop out before she actually runs, because the blowback from this is going to be enormous, and it absolutely should be. So that's all I have to say about that, man. It's so funny. Anyway, let's talk about Nina Jankowicz, which is like Nomiki Konst's and Taylor Loren's twin or triplet. If I saw those three walking together on the sidewalk, talking to each other, I'd be like, I can't tell those three apart. Another great article by Lev Golinkin, which you guys may have remembered. His last article for The Nation was going through Nina Jankowicz's past, and how she was part of Stop Fake, and how she whitewashed the Azov Battalion and C-14 battalions in Ukraine, which are just Nazi battalions before, and how, that of course makes her a pretty good fit for a disinformation board, which we all know is a truth ministry. She's a good liar, basically. So she didn't do so well because she had some videos that went viral of her singing like Mary Poppins about censoring people, and of course the mass of people who like to laugh at that kind of thing tore her a new one, and of course they framed it as if it was all a bunch of right-wingers harassing her. No, don't just give them all the credit. I'm a far lefty, and I went after her pretty hard too. This is a universally hated woman, so don't act like this is right-wing harassment. This is people who don't want to be censored harassing this person. And the person that they got to replace Nina Jankowicz, or to at least audit the Disinformation Governance Board, his name is Michael Chertoff. Now, you may not know the name right off the bat, but this article is going to detail how he was one of the architects of the Patriot Act, which is Joe Biden's surveillance act that they put in, and of course the Republicans as well, after 9/11 to help them surveil the United States population. He was also pro-CIA torture. So like I said, when they were looking for the person to audit this type of thing, they were like, well, we need to find at least somebody that has some experience with lots and lots of surveillance, CIA torture, and as it turns out, making a whole bunch of money off of in 2009, there was an attempted attack on a jetliner, a terrorist attack. And Michael Chertoff, who used to be the head of the Department of Homeland Security back in the day, he was brought on after that attempted attack to push the idea of putting scanners in all airports. And as it turns out, the scanners that they were then putting in all the airports due to these terrorist attacks, he was actually working for a firm that made a whole bunch of money off of the company that sold all those scanners. So that's the last thing we're going to cover here. Again, this is from The Nation, from Lev Golemkin, who is just doing great work right now. This is called Another Terrible Choice for Biden's Disinformation Board. Last week, the Department of Homeland Security announced that it was temporarily deactivating its Disinformation Governance Board, a working group ostensibly designed to help the government develop strategies to combat fake news. Around the same time, the board's head Nina Jankowicz, whose troubling past had been highlighted by many, including me on The Nation, tendered her resignation. The DHS, Jankowicz, and numerous media outlets blamed the implosion on a right-wing smear campaign that spread lies about the institution and Jankowicz. We didn't have to spread lies. These were just things that we found out about her past. You don't have to spread lies about it. And if she's singing like Mary Poppins about censorship, that makes her an easy target. It's not our fault that she's an easy target. Sorry. Of course, this excuse itself is a lie. Warnings about the danger of government-run disinformation policing came from across the political spectrum. Concerns about Jankowicz's record were based on verifiable facts, which makes them the opposite of a smear campaign, and the notion of a disinformation-fighting body claimed to be undone by disinformation speaks volumes about its competence. But instead of ushering in a moment of reflection, the decision that the board's work would be paused immediately segued into a new scandal when the DHS appointed former DHS, Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Michael Chertoff to co-lead a review and assessment of the organ's future. He's basically doing like an audit, and he would likely then be, we'll see, likely then be the head of it if he can audit it and figure out a way to make it a little less flamboyant as it would have obviously been under Jankowicz. If the Biden administration wanted to dispel the Orwellian aura around the very idea of a government-sponsored disinformation board, it couldn't have picked a worse candidate. Chertoff is notorious for enabling some of the most egregious offenses of the war on terrorism, from federal surveillance to unlawful detention to torture. Indeed, his previous governmental appointments were met with vociferous opposition from groups like the Human Rights Watch and the ACLU. And if you see a picture of this guy, by the way, he looks like a straight-up, like, Bond villain. He looks like the guy that owns the lunatic asylum in Beauty and the Beast. He's like... Look at his picture. He actually fits the description of a cartoon supervillain. Anyway. The aftermath of September 11, 2001, terrorist attacks led to widespread federal abuses. At the time, Chertoff was head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division, where he supported actions that led to the baseless detention of hundreds of Muslims. He was also one of the principal authors of the Patriot Act, legislation that granted the government sweeping surveillance powers which were promptly abused by federal agencies. Above all, it was Chertoff's involvement with the CIA torture that defined his impact on one of the darker times in American history. Starting in 2002, the CIA embarked on a campaign of torture of terrorism suspects carried out at black sites in Guantanamo Bay. As was revealed later, the spy agency understood that waterboarding and other quote-unquote enhanced interrogation techniques, as they were euphemistically known, exposed it to legal jeopardy. This led the CIA to seek counsel from Chertoff, who headed the Justice Department's Criminal Division. So he was basically hired on to whitewash the CIA's torture program and try to nerf it and keep it quiet. Like, run interference so people don't know about it, and what they do know about it, they question whether it's valid or not. That's what he was hired on to do. Chertoff furnished the agency with the guidance that led to the continuing use of such torture techniques. As we noted in The Nation, he also appeared to have taken steps to keep the torture program concealed from the public eye. Now you can see why they are looking to him to possibly head the Truth Ministry. He's more hush-hush than that singing, dancing clown that we just had in there. However, the most salient aspect of Chertoff's resume, at least as it relates to running the DHS Disinformation Board review, is his dip into common morally corrupt practice of Washington bigwigs undisclosed lobbying via manipulation of public information. On Christmas Day in 2009, a thwarted terrorist attempt to blow up an airliner with concealed explosives led to a burst of new air travel policies, including the use of the now ubiquitous body scanners at airports. Chertoff, who at this point had retired from leading the DHS, was all over the news advocating for these scanners. What often went undisclosed, according to the Washington Post, was that Chertoff's security consulting firm represented Rapiscan, a major scanner manufacturer. I'm going to read that again, just so you guys understand how he's going out, manipulating the public perception so that his firm and himself can enrich themselves. On Christmas Day 2009, a thwarted terrorist attempt to blow up an airliner with concealed explosives led to a burst of new air travel policies, including the use of the now ubiquitous body scanners at airports. Chertoff, who at this point had retired from leading the DHS, was all over the news advocating for the scanners. What often went undisclosed, according to the Washington Post, was that Chertoff's security consulting firm represented Rapiscan, a major scanner manufacturer, presumably a former government official trading in on his experience in order to lucratively sway national security policy is the type of action the DHS Disinformation Board might be looking to prevent. Of course, Chertoff is far from the only facilitator of American torture to be rehabilitated by elite institutions in Washington and beyond. Gina Haspel, whom Congress confirmed to be the head of the CIA in 2013, used to run one of the black sites where, quote, enhanced interrogation techniques were practiced. Haspel's confirmation took place thanks to votes from Democrats. John Yoo, the attorney who drafted the infamous George W. Bush administration's torture memos, is now the Emanuel S. Heller Professor of Law at Berkeley. It is unclear whether the man who cleared the path for the torture of Muslims is also involved in Berkeley's racial justice initiative. And earlier this year, former Vice President Dick Cheney, the face of the darkest aspects of war on terrorism, was warmly welcomed by virtually all Democratic members of Congress. So that's Michael Chertoff and some other people who are pretty slimy as well. But of course, this makes perfect sense. This is somebody who has experience trying to keep very nefarious things like CIA torture out of the public eye, so he's good at keeping things hush-hush. And he is also very well versed in surveillance, because he wrote the Patriot Act, or helped write the Patriot Act. And of course, he whitewashes horrible things that are generally thought of as disgusting and reprehensible, like torture, from the public. He's able to more effectively navigate something like a truth ministry quietly and make sure that any type of bad information coming out about it is kept hush-hush. So that makes him perfect for the head of the DHS, or excuse me, he was already head of the DHS, the Disinformation Governance Board. So very, very scary. Of course, he's just auditing it right now, but this is the type of person that you hire to fine-tune a truth ministry that was, you know, as quick or as recently as 2 or 3 weeks ago thought of as a farce. Now it's going to be much less of a farce. They finally figured out that you can't put somebody that has the public reputation and the public gaffes and the history that Nina Jankowicz has as head of the truth ministry. She's going to get shellacked, and it's all going to become a clown show, and it's going to be overt, and it's going to be flamboyant. This guy is the opposite of all of those things. He's the fixer that comes in and literally kind of actually sets this all up in a quiet way. And if you've noticed, this is something that everybody was talking about a couple weeks ago. Nobody's barely talking about this at all anymore. And that, again, is kind of evidence in and of itself that Chertoff is the right man for the job, and that's bad news for all of us because he's a very quiet supervillain who is good at whitewashing torture, writing surveillance legislation, and detaining Muslims, and shaping public perception, making people fearful of certain things so that he can make money off of, in this case, body scanners. So, yep, right man for the job if you ask me. This guy is much more nefarious than Nina Jankowicz. So it's scary as hell. Try to keep an eye on this. Again, great work by Lev Golinkin. You have my full attention. I did not know who this guy was as a writer until only recently, but now I'm going to read everything that he puts out because this is good stuff. Highly recommend you read the rest of the article as well. I read about half of it. Keep fighting that good fight out there, guys. I'll talk to you later.